I'll tell you something that's probably going to stick in your head for a long time. On a lonely Texas highway, two cops figured they'd make a black woman's life hell just for the thrill of it, like it was some kind of game. You know what I mean? They saw a woman alone, easy pickings, someone they thought wouldn't fight back, and decided right then and there to pin a crime on her, have a laugh, and call it a day. They planted drugs in her trunk, all smug and certain they owned the world out there. Only problem? They didn't know who they were messing with. Their target was Evelyn Hayes, not just anybody, but a high-level federal director whose patience for abuse was even thinner than that strip of Texas asphalt. And what happened next? Man, that changed everything, not just for them, but for half the damn county. It started just like any other summer afternoon in the South, sun glaring so hard the road looked like it was melting into the horizon. Evelyn, or Auntie to her family, was behind the wheel of her Navy Ford, Johnny Cash on the radio, feeling almost anonymous, just a sister, an aunt, letting go of work and all the life or death stuff that comes with being a top dog in D.C. She was heading back after a rare family visit, every mile just rolling away beneath her tires, and for a moment, it was like the world had forgotten she was anything but a regular woman. But you know how these stories go, trouble always finds you when you least expect it. She clocked the cruiser in her rear view right away, riding too close, predatory, the kind of tailgating that says, we own this stretch, and you don't. She was doing 43 and a 45, absolutely by the book, but the cop didn't budge. Then came the lights, that blue-red flash that turns your heart to lead, and Evelyn, calm as you please, guided her car to the shoulder, hands steady on the wheel like she'd rehearsed it her whole life. She knew the drill. Be respectful, keep your hands where they can see, don't give them an excuse. But as soon as the officers got out, she could feel the chill. One older, face hard as sun-baked leather, the other younger, coiled like a snake and settling right into her blind spot behind the trunk. That's not accident, that's intimidation, pure and simple. Morning, officer, is there a problem? Evelyn asked, lowering her window just enough to be heard, not enough for them to reach inside. The older cop, Miller, just gave her a look that felt like a search warrant all by itself, eyes crawling over her hands and face. License and registration, he grunted. You drifted over the line back there. Evelyn didn't blink. I don't believe so, sir, but here's my paperwork. She handed over her license slow and careful, every move telegraphed. Miller took it. At her name, Hayes, he muttered, like he was chewing something tough. Then, with a flick, he nodded to his partner. Pop the trunk. Now, Evelyn knew exactly what was going on. That was no request. That was bait, hoping she'd get scared, say something, or make a wrong move. Is that a lawful order, officer, or just a request? She asked, cool as ever. Crow, the younger one, put his hand on his baton, eyes narrowed. You got something to hide in there, ma'am? She kept her gaze forward. I know what's in my trunk, and I know my rights. But Miller, voice sharp as barbed wire, snapped back. You comply now, or we do this the hard way. So Evelyn pressed the trunk release. She knew this game was rigged, but there was no way out but through. It took less than a minute for Crow to come strutting back, waving a plastic bag filled with white powder like he'd found buried treasure. Well, what do we have here? He sneered. Evelyn stared at him through the mirror. That's not mine, she said, steady. You sure about that? Crow grinned, already celebrating. Miller leaned in, breath reeking of arrogance. You're a long way from D.C., ma'am. Out here, things get real uncomfortable for folks who like to argue. Evelyn's voice was like steel. I know my rights. I do not consent to this search. I want legal representation. That bag was not in my car. Miller just laughed, shaking his head, mock surprise all over his face. Hear that, Crow? We got ourselves a law professor. Guilty people sure do talk a lot. But Evelyn wouldn't play along. If you were confident in your case, you wouldn't need to insult me. You know this stop is illegal. That was the last straw. Miller's eyes went dark, and suddenly the nice act was gone. Get out of the car, he growled. No, not without a supervisor. You're holding drugs you didn't find in my vehicle. The game is over. That's when Miller snapped, yanked the door open, grabbed her arm, dragged her out. Crow was there in a heartbeat, rough, fast, mechanical. They slammed her into the side of the car, handcuffed her so tight it felt like a punishment. Not so tough now, huh, Professor? Crow spat in her ear. Evelyn kept her back straight, head high. If they wanted her to break, they'd have to work a lot harder. Inside the squad car, the world outside moved in slow motion, people rubbernecking, watching the routine arrest, not realizing this was anything but routine. At the precinct, the boredom was thick as the smell of stale coffee. The sergeant barely looked at her, just mumbled charges, possession, obstruction, and started typing in her name. Then, everything changed. The computer pinged, red flag, federal alert, classification level 5. The sergeant went pale, hands trembling as he read, Director, Drug Enforcement Administration. Suddenly, everyone in that room understood. This wasn't a nobody. This was the worst mistake of their careers. Evelyn didn't raise her voice, didn't threaten. She just said, put the phone down. Secure this building. Freeze all network access. Every record from every squad car is now federal evidence. Her presence filled the room. The handcuffs weren't shame anymore. They were the proof. Less than an hour later, her federal team stormed in, sealed off the station. Miller and Crow? Gone. Like ghosts. But the drugs they planted weren't just regular evidence. Turns out, the bag had a tracking code linked to a cartel case, something that never should have left the federal warehouse. They hadn't just framed a stranger. They'd stolen government evidence, thinking nobody would ever notice. With the full might of the DEA behind her, Evelyn dug into the records. It wasn't just her. There was a whole pattern. Dozens of minority drivers targeted, cameras conveniently malfunctioning, and then she found the story of Leo Gibson, a young black man dead in custody, ruled a suicide. Evelyn kept digging until she found what the cops had buried, a bystander's video showing Miller and Crow beating him, killing him, calling it procedure. It was murder, plain and simple. Then came the twist. An informant stepped forward, exposing a network that spanned 5 departments, all working under a ghost protocol called Sentinel, run by a disgraced agent named Arthur Finch. The drugs, the cover-ups, the violence, all of it orchestrated from the shadows. When the DEA tactical team rolled up on Miller and Crow out in the desert, Evelyn was in front, watching as they realized the tables had turned, the terror in their eyes proof that justice sometimes really does catch up. Finch? Hiding in plain sight, surrounded by screens, thinking he was untouchable, until Evelyn walked in and made sure he wasn't. Evelyn's testimony before Congress was like a sledgehammer. She named names, showed the evidence, tore the whole rotten system apart right on national television. Miller, Crow, and Finch all went down for life, not just for the drugs, not just for the corruption, but for murder. And that old, crooked system? Burned down, replaced with the Gibson Initiative, a new system, transparent, no more secrets, no more hidden victims. I guess what I learned from watching all that, from seeing Evelyn stand her ground and refuse to be silenced, is that justice almost never arrives like a lightning bolt. It's more like slow, stubborn rain, steady, unyielding, and impossible to stop. So let me ask you, what do you think? Was that true justice? Did Evelyn go far enough? Drop your thoughts in the comments, and if you believe in the kind of justice that never gives up, share this with someone who needs to hear it. Because the truth, no matter how long it takes, always finds a way.